The genesis of my study of intelligence is actually interesting. I did not come into this world with an intent. I finished my first master's degree in 2001. I did international law. In that year, like many of us, my interests and my profession changed to include security issues. That year, I also started working on risk analysis and counterterrorism. We were building arcane models drawn from engineering to deal with the counterterrorism threat, like many were. We were all taking the resources we had at hand and throwing them at the problem, which led to some success and a lot of failure, let's be honest. I was the policy person on a team that was trying to use engineering, geology, seismic tools to facilitate the process of counterterrorism. What I came to as we were struggling to do this, struggling to convey the importance of these types of tools to decision makers, was the models can be as good as they are. They can be fantastic and complex. They're only as good as the information that's coming into them. And that started me off thinking about the information, intelligence information. I went to graduate school to get a PhD in political science so that I could understand different ways of grappling with this issue, this question of what role intelligence plays in a democracy. That's where I started. So I started with institutions and oversight, accountability. What should we be looking at? What role, in this time of throwing resources at a security problem, what role should security and intelligence actually play? Beyond that, I started drilling in deeper and understanding the models and understanding the differences between all the agencies and different types of techniques, and the differences between military intelligence, for example, and all the different ints or disciplines of intelligence. That came later. My first interest was really, what is this thing, and how do we build it into what we are as a population, as Americans? And that really started it. On the other side, I used to love the TV show Alias, and I wanted to be a graduate student by day and a spy by night. And that is the other side of how I came to be interested in this issue. The student who goes through the new program we're establishing right now will have a broader awareness of these types of issues. By these types of issues, I mean the complexities of intelligence and the value of intelligence for his or her future plans and work. That is the crucial piece of this. Intelligence is value. It's value added. It gives you comparative advantage over the adversary. It allows you to think ahead and plan ahead and make better decisions. We want students to understand the breadth of it so that they understand. Many come in understanding military intelligence a little bit. We want them to, some obviously are experts in it. We could put those together and complement that core knowledge with knowledge drawn from other sources, such as other agencies in the national level intelligence community. Other agencies such as CIA, NRO, NGA, INR. There's a range, and they're all intended to serve their consumer. By allowing our students to understand the range of consumers being the decision makers, for example, INR serves State Department officials and gives them information on their particular needs. CIA does HUMINT and a range of other activities. And NSA obviously does signals intelligence. So these all have some, both pejoratively and positively, have said these are stovepipes. They develop their expertise in the direction that they need to. What we want our students to do is understand all of those directions, understand all of those consumer-producer relationships, and understand what it can do for them. By which I mean also how much it can do, but where the constraints are. So they're not asking a producer to provide them something that the producer can't provide, but they are understanding the best way to use that resource. But what we're trying to do here in this program is build it so that it's a core to the overall takeaways that the students have when they leave, when they go down range, or they become an advisor to a top-level decision maker. We want them to understand how intelligence complements the tool set they came in with and the tool set that they will leave here with. So in so doing, we integrate a range of different types of subdisciplines into what we're doing, because intelligence studies is made up of all these different disciplines. It's not just intelligence as a process in the military. It is sociology, anthropology, it's mathematics, probability, it's statistics, political science, international relations, psychology. It's all of that, because all of that is needed to inform a context for what we're actually doing. So on one side, you could say it's preparing the battlefield, it's giving you information, situational awareness. On the other, you could look at civil liberties and intelligence. What role, normatively, does intelligence play in a democracy? What role is it playing? What role does media play as a check on intelligence? There's a range. What does covert action look like? How do you do it? What does it look like when it's successful? What does it feel like when you are the target of it? All of these are questions that are integral to the study of intelligence, and we don't touch upon that. Most professional military education does not. It is viewed as an input into the broader operation at hand, or an input into strategic decision making. So that's very important. We want our students to think that way, to think as strategists, to think longer term, bigger picture. But it's much more complex than that. We want to integrate this way of thinking. So back to critical thinking, which is the very core of what we're trying to do here. Force students to think through case studies, analyzing their own biases. Think through what heuristics could be used. Heuristics, I mean a tool to aid in thinking, to examine mirror imaging, thinking that the adversary is thinking exactly the way they do. Or groupthink, where you get a gathering of individuals thinking generally in the same way because they have incentives to do so. That's one way of looking at the tools that intelligence can bring to the table, and a way of looking at intelligence itself. If you move, that could be here, that could be a DCLM or leadership type program. If you look at another program such as policy courses or history courses, history, you're looking at intelligence in its context of war throughout history. You're looking at intelligence in the policy process, which is how are you understanding intelligence? You're a senior decision maker. How are you understanding the intelligence that is coming to you? Do you agree with it? Do you not agree with it? How do you decide which to take on board when you make a decision? How do you assess the probability of its correctness? How do you understand how to communicate with another agency? And more important in that context, what the pitfalls of that communication could be. And when you dig into those issues, it could be bureaucratic hindrances, it could be different lexica, it could be unwillingness to change, or too much willingness to change, as we've seen post 9/11, force change, and what effect that has. Political dynamics in that context, and I know we'd like to put politics aside when we're talking about these types of issues, but politics is actually embedded in intelligence. You're talking about people with political interests and engaging with them. So how do you try to develop an objective view on the material you're receiving? How do you communicate that to a decision maker? And how do you understand what should be drawn from that?